Well, I want to welcome those that are watching online right now. We're excited that you're with us today. A lot of people traveling. Summer has begun, and so people are here and there. But we're glad that you are here today, and I believe that God has a word for you, and even those of you that are watching online. And just want to remind you about iGroups beginning this week. If you have not signed up for a group this summer, we encourage you sign up for a group. Do life together with people. We do these in semesters. Just with the way that life flows. And so this week kicks off our summer semester. It's 6 weeks long, which will end on Serve Day 2019, which is July the 13th, where we will gather together, all of us as one big church, and we will serve all over our community doing different projects on that day. And so that's going to be incredible. But you can find all of the groups at yourimpactchurch.com/iGroups, and there's an online directory there. You can join the group that fits you. They're different nights of the week. They meet at different locations. And so you just kind of find what works for you, maybe for your family, and get plugged into a group. One note to make mention of is one of those is a spin class. Come on, somebody. You can get to know people, be in community, and get in shape at the same time. Can I get a better amen than that right now? And another thing is you can do that by joining our setup team. Come on, somebody. Many of you don't know, but when we get here in the mornings, this building is empty. And so everything that you see gets set up so that we can share the gospel with people every single weekend. And so you can get exercise and community by setting up. You can get exercise and community by being a part of our iGroup. That's Spirit Spin is what it's called. It's got a Christian twist to it. But I want to let you know those are meeting on Sunday evenings at 5 o'clock, except for today. Today will be at 2 p.m. Because of the next thing I'm going to tell you about, which is our party to kick off the summer begins at 3. And so you can go be a part of that group, jump in there today, and then show up in Brookston, which I think, do we have the address that we can throw up on the screen? If you want to write this down, you can write down that address to know where to go today. It's only about a 10-minute drive. I don't even think it's maybe not even 10 minutes from where we are right now. But be out there, and we're going to have food. Bring whatever your favorite thing is. Bring something to drink, whatever you would like, and we're going to have games and swimming. There's a nice pool there. And if you don't like to swim, don't not come just because you don't like to swim. All right, there's going to be plenty of us not swimming. We're going to be playing cornhole and playing different games and hanging out, just having a good time together. And so we want to invite you, starting at 3 o'clock, you can begin showing up, and we're going to have a good time as we kick off the summer. And then the last thing before we jump into the message today is our iClub trip, which is our 5th through 8th grade area of the church. They are taking their trip to Magic Springs. Come on, how many of you know there's nothing better than an amusement park and a water park in one, right? You can go ride all the rides you want and get hot and sweaty, and then walk right over and get on some water ride and go swimming. It's going to be an awesome time. So they're leaving this Friday, right? This Friday at 4 o'clock, and they'll be returning Saturday evening. If you have a 5th through 8th grade student, we would love for them to be able to go. It's $75 for the entire trip. That's the overnight stay and the park and the concert, and everything is included in that. And so get signed up at Impact Central today. Sign up your 5th through 8th grader and take care of that payment. And we would love for you to be able to go. We need those by Wednesday at the latest so that we can get the everything squared away. So keep that in mind. And we're doing a thing this year that for June, July, and August, we're celebrating summer at Impact, and we believe that God has given us, really given me a series of messages, and really different series that I believe are going to help you this summer as we kind of dig in and go deeper. And I want to give you an overview. So if you're wondering where are we going this summer and what are we doing and all that, we want you to be here. I know that people are traveling and vacations and all of that, but we're going to be doing a few different things this summer. Our first series that's actually beginning today, we're calling Staycation. Come on, how many of you know there are vacationers and there are staycationers? Come on, where are my staycationers at? You're just going to hang out at home because you know when you go away, you're probably going to be more busy while you're there than you would be just sitting at home, right? So you might take some time off work and stay at home. So we're starting a series today about living life on mission called Staycation. And then after that, when we get into July, we're going to do a series specifically around, this will be unique to our church, but it's specifically around our vision as a church. So we want 4 things for you when you come to Impact Church and you attend and you get in all these different environments and groups and serving, and all of this. And those 4 things are to know God, find freedom, discover purpose, and make an impact. And so we're going to do a 4-part series, and we're going to break down each one of those things and what that means for your life. And so I'm excited about that. And then a thing that we started last year that'll be an annual thing is our series that we end the summer with called At the Movies. Come on, how many of y'all remember At the Movies? Was anybody here last summer? All of y'all are new since last summer. That's awesome. We did a series called At the Movies. So for 4 or 5 weeks, we're going to take different movies that have been popular and watch little clips of them, and then we apply that to our lives and how we can learn. Come on, you didn't know that you could learn from a secular movie, that you could learn some spiritual principle in your life. And so we're going to have a lot of fun with that, and we enjoyed it last year. We're going to end the summer with that before we head into the fall. So that's kind of where we're going this summer, and we want you to be here. We've got a lot of things going on with groups and activities and outings and things like that we'll be reminding you of and letting you know of as they get closer throughout the summer. But I want to jump in because I want to give you everything I have for the next 33 minutes and 11 seconds. That in this series we're beginning today called Staycation. And what we're going to do throughout this series is we're going to talk about different ways that we can make sure that we're living our life on mission, that we're living our life on purpose, that we're living our life the way that God intends for us to live our life. Are you with me? Come on, anybody in the room feel like you got it all figured out? You just live on purpose 24/7, just even when you're sleeping, you just living life on purpose, man. You just praying in your sleep and you got it all figured out. Nobody, right? So this is going to be helpful to everybody in the room because we all need some encouragement in how we can live our life on the mission that God intends for our life. Because so many times we're doing our own thing, and I want to start off. I've titled this message, I want to talk to you on this subject, This is Real Life. Come on, somebody say, this is real life. Come on, say it like you mean it. This is real life. I want to ask you a question. We'll have a little fun with this. I need everybody to participate. Come on, we're a church. We participate. I want you to participate today. How many of you, just kind of set the foundation for this message, how many of you have ever been walking through a grocery store, or you've been, maybe you're at Walmart, you're at Aldi's, and you hit your buggy, and you're pushing through, you do your thing, you're throwing stuff in there, and then all of a sudden it happened, right? You saw somebody that you knew, and they were about 100 feet away. Now, how many of you have seen somebody that you knew and took off down the next aisle because you didn't want to encounter that person that you knew in that moment, right? I don't have time for that. I don't want to talk to them right now. I'm in a bad mood. Just had a fight with my husband, and I'm just done. I just can't even be friendly right now. And you took off down the next aisle, and you dodged, you avoided the person that you knew. Or you're driving down the road, and you pull up, and you just happen to notice out of the corner of your eye that the person that's next to you at the stoplight is somebody that you know, and you just pull one of these. You're just like, and you don't ever look that straight ahead ever in your life unless there's somebody next to you that you don't want to make eye contact with, right? And if the kids are in there, you're like, sit down, shut up, don't make eye contact, don't do anything. They're like, Dad, they're there. And you're trying to avoid them. Or you're walking, you're doing some shopping somewhere, or maybe you've even been in Dallas or somewhere just out of town, and you're trying to get away for a little bit, and then you run into somebody that you know. Come on, you ever ran into somebody that you knew, and you're like, I'm on vacation? What are you doing here? We're trying to spend a few days away, and now I'm going to run into you, and you're just, you're dodging them and all this stuff. And the reason that we do this is because I don't think that we like interruption. We don't like to be interrupted. Anybody here just love to be, you're just praying, you're working on a project at home, and you're just praying, I just hope somebody pulls in the driveway and needs to talk for 30 minutes because I just need a break from what I'm doing. I don't really need to get this done. Anybody? For most of us, we hate it. We can't stand interruption. We can't stand for our lives and what we had planned and these things to be interrupted. And today, I want to start us off in Matthew chapter 8. And we're going to read about 27 verses. Is it okay if we read the Bible at church today? We're going to read about 27 verses. And before I read that, I need to give you kind of the backdrop of what has just happened so that you'll understand why what we're about to read actually matters to what we're talking about today. So Jesus, we're going to read about Jesus. Jesus has just been, there's this famous message that he's preached and he's been teaching. It's called the Sermon on the Mount. If you've been in church before, whatever, you might have heard about this Sermon on the Mount. And so he's been preaching and teaching large numbers, large crowds of people. And he's teaching them and he's preaching and he's doing his thing. You know, and there's probably people over here who's like, woo, that's a good word, Jesus. That's good. Amen. Right there, Jesus. Yeah. My wife need to hear that one right there. Thank you, Jesus. He's preaching good. And you can go read it. I believe it's Matthew 5, 6, and 7. And some people even believe that this might have been a few days that Jesus. You ever done something for a few days consistently? How many of you know you'd be tired? You'd be worn out. Jesus has been preaching, teaching all these people for even what some people believe to be a few days and going through this. And this is where we pick it up. He's coming down from the mountain where he's been standing and he's been preaching and teaching all of these people. And this is what it says in Matthew chapter 8, starting in verse 1. It says, large crowds followed Jesus as he came down the mountainside. Now, I have to pause here because you can relate to this more than you think. Anybody ever invited somebody over to your house? Just imagine this for a moment. You invited some people over to your house, and you have, it's this party going on. You're just having a good time, and there's food there, whatever. And it comes time for everybody to leave, and people are starting to kind of wind down. And then you're like, after this is over, I need to go to the grocery store. I got to pick up a few things for tomorrow. And so you go get in your car, and you head out to the grocery store, and everybody that was there with you gets in their car, and they just follow you to the grocery store. You get out, and they just walk in with you. They're just walking through the aisles, saying, just want to hang out with you. Can you help me? Can you buy this for me? Can you do this or whatever? And then you go home, and you get back at home, and they all just pull back up in your driveway and park on the street, and they come in, and you're like, all right, it's getting kind of late, guys. I think we should probably go to bed or whatever. And they're like, it's all right. I'll just sit on the couch. We'll just crash the living room. You got air mattress? We'll just crash the living room. We'll just hang out with you for a little bit longer, and like just hang out with you for a little bit longer. This is what happened to Jesus. Just to put it in perspective, these people all gathered together for him to teach and preach and say all of this good stuff that they needed to know for their life because Jesus was there. And as soon as it's over, Jesus is like, whoo, that was good. And he's walking down the mountain and he turns around and everybody's following him. They're all like, well, I don't know, who this guy is, but I kind of like this guy and what he had to say. And, some of the stuff that, maybe we've seen him do. And this is where he picked it up. He comes down and large crowds follow him down from the mountainside and says, suddenly a man with leprosy approached him and knelt before him. Lord, the man said, if you are willing, you can heal me and make me clean. Jesus reached out and touched him. I am willing, he said, be healed. And instantly the leprosy disappeared. Then Jesus said to him, don't tell anyone about this. Instead, go to the priest and let him examine you. Take along the offering required in the law of Moses for those who have been healed of leprosy. This will be a public testimony that you have been cleansed. When Jesus returned to Capernaum, a Roman officer came and pleaded with him. Lord, my young servant lies in bed, paralyzed and in terrible pain. Jesus said, I will come and heal him. But the officer said, Lord, I am not worthy to have you come into my home. Just say the word from where you are, and my servant will be healed. I know this because I am under the authority of my superior officers, and I have authority over my soldiers. I only need to say go, and they go, or come, and they come. And if I say to my slaves, do this, they do it. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed. Turning to those who were following him, he said, I tell you the truth, I haven't seen faith like this in all Israel. Verse 11. And I tell you this, that many Gentiles will come from all over the world, from east and west, and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob at the feast in the kingdom of heaven. But many Israelites, those for whom the kingdom was prepared, will be thrown into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then Jesus said to the Roman officer, go back home, because you believed it has happened. And the young servant was healed that same hour. When Jesus arrived at Peter's house, Peter's mother-in-law was sick in bed with a high fever. But when Jesus touched her hand, the fever left her. Then she got up and prepared a meal for him. That evening, many demon-possessed people were brought to Jesus. He cast out the evil spirits with a simple command, and he healed all the sick. This fulfilled the word of the Lord through the prophet Isaiah, who said, he took our sicknesses and removed our diseases. When Jesus saw the crowd around him, he instructed his disciples to cross to the other side of the lake. Then one of the teachers of religious law said to him, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." But Jesus replied, "Foxes have dens to live in, and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place even to lay his head." Another of his disciples said, "Lord, first let me return home and bury my father." But Jesus told him, "Follow me now. Let the spiritually dead bury their own dead." Then Jesus got into the boat and started across the lake with his disciples. Suddenly a fierce storm struck the lake, with waves breaking into the boat, but Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him up, shouting, "Lord, save us! We're going to drown." Jesus responded, "Why are you afraid? You have so little faith." Then he got up and rebuked the wind and waves, and suddenly there was a great calm. The disciples were amazed, as you would be too. "Who is this man?" they asked. "Even the winds and waves obey him." So I want us to picture this for a moment. Jesus has just poured all of this out, all of this teaching, all of this stuff to all these people that are gathered around to hear him talk. And as soon as he goes to leave, large crowds of people follow him. And one guy walks up and he's like, "Oh, I've had this disease," and like, hey, I've got this stuff all over my skin. Like, can you heal me? Can you touch me? Like, is that something that you think you can handle? And Jesus heals him and touches him and tells him, gives him instruction to go do this. And then as soon as that's over, then this officer comes up and is like, "Hey, Jesus, hey, I heard about what you just did for that guy back there. And, I was wondering, I've got this guy at home and he's really sick. And I was thinking, it'd be pretty cool if you could heal him. And I know, you don't have to come to my house. You don't need anybody in my house right now. The house is a mess. So just say the word and he'll be healed." And Jesus says the word and the guy is healed instantly. The officer goes home and finds him healed. And then immediately after that, it's like, hey, Peter's like, I know we've been doing this thing and you've been teaching and preaching and all this stuff that's going on. And that's all really good. It's a great sermon and great message. And really enjoyed church today. But I know you're coming to my house. And before you walk in, I know that, we're supposed to have lunch prepared for you. But, we couldn't get to it because my mother-in-law, she's supposed to cook the meal, but she's sick. And so when you get in there, like, you think you can go in and, I've been watching what you did with these other people. Do you think you can go in and heal her? And Peter's like, just come right. Let me show you where she's at. And Jesus goes in and heals her. And she gets up and cooks a meal. And immediately after they get done eating, like, people start bringing all these demon-possessed people. Like, all these people that are struggling with all this stuff. And they bring them all to Jesus. We've been hearing about all this stuff you've been doing. And we were at church today and we heard about it. And we're just wondering, can you heal all these people? Can you do something with them? And Jesus is like, okay. And Jesus does what only Jesus can do. And then he turns around and he's telling the disciples, "Hey, let's go across the lake and go get in the boat." And they get in the boat. And all of a sudden this big storm comes up while they're over there. And Jesus is taking a nap. How many of you know after all that stuff that Jesus just did, just teaching for maybe even a few days and then being bombarded with all these people, Jesus is like, "I'm tired." He's in the bottom of the boat. He's sleeping, and the disciples are freaking out. Like, "Jesus, I don't even know how you can be asleep right now. The boat is rocking. Like, we're about to flip over. There is water coming into the boat. Jesus, do you think you could do something?" And Jesus is like, "Why are you so afraid?" Jesus wakes up and comes out, and he tells the wind and the waves, like, just be still. Quit doing all that stuff. And all of a sudden it gets real still. And they start looking at each other and they're like, "Who in the world?" Like, I know we've been following this guy for a little bit now, but this dude just told the wave, like the wind quit blowing when he said something. Like, who is this guy? And Jesus, and we could go on and on and on. And if you were to read all of the Gospels, you would see all of these moments when Jesus was what we would call interrupted. But there's one thing that I've noticed about Jesus in all of these instances, and if you go back and you read all of these other instances that you can read throughout the Bible that we don't have time to read today, there's one thing I've noticed about Jesus. In all of these, what we would call interruptions, Jesus, do we have that? He listens and responds to the needs that are around him. So here's what Jesus does when he gets interrupted. He listens and he responds and he does whatever the Father tells him to do in the moment. How many of us in the room today could say that, you know what, every time I get interrupted, I just listen. I'm just such a great listener. People just come to me and they're telling me their problems, and I just listen so well. And then I respond and I do something to help them. That's not most of us. We might do that occasionally, but we don't do that all the time. And I want to talk about, I've got 3 points for you today, and I'm going to kind of split them up as we go through the message, and you'll understand why in just a moment. You'll get it. But if Jesus lived his life on earth on mission, I believe he's calling us to do the same. And here's my first point, and it's in the form of a question if you want to write this down. And here's the question. What is real life? What is real life? If we were to go around the room today, everybody would have an opinion of what they feel like real life is. And we even make comments about this to people. Oh, that's just real life. We tell our kids, well, that's just real life. I mean, that's just real life. Well, this is real life. This is my life. But I want to ask you, what is real life? And I want to read something that C.S. Lewis wrote. Many of you have heard of him. He said this. He said, the great thing, if one can, is to stop regarding all of the unpleasant things as interruptions of one's own or real life. The truth is, of course, that what one calls the interruptions are precisely one's real life. The life God is sending day by day. What one calls one's real life is a phantom of one's own imagination. So what he's saying, and what I feel like Jesus is trying to communicate today, is that what you think real life is your busyness and your agenda and everything that you've got lined up to do. And, well, I got to take care of this, and I'm thinking about this, and I got to do that. That Jesus is saying that's not real life. Because when you're living life that way, you're missing out on the interruptions that God would actually call opportunities. And there are some of us in the room today that are praying, and we pray this regularly, or every once in a while it's like, God, I just want to be used, whatever you want to do. And God is like, here's how you can be used. The person that you keep avoiding, that keeps coming across your path, is somebody that I'm trying to present to you so that you can help them, but you keep avoiding them because you can't be interrupted. Oh, but God, just use me, I'm just whatever you want to do. And God says, will you go talk to them in the grocery store when you were only planning on being here for 10 minutes, but it's going to take 30 minutes to listen to the problem or listen to whatever they're going through, but they just need somebody to listen and be able to tell it to. Will you do that? Oh, God, just use me. I just want to be, I just give my life to you and all this. And God says, stop viewing the people and the things that you would call an interruption as interruptions. Because I'm bringing them into your life as an opportunity. And every time you avoid, come on, we've all done this, I'm sure. It's like you're driving or you're somewhere and you see somebody and you just kind of get this feeling, you just have this thought, you get this feeling in your heart like you're supposed to do something for them. You're supposed to pay for something, or you're supposed to help them, or you're supposed to offer something to them or whatever, and we avoid it. Because here's what we do. Our real life, we think that real life is, well, I got to get up in the morning and just enough time to where I can shower and be at work 3 minutes late, because if I'm 5 minutes late, they start getting upset about it and it shows up on the time clock. So I need to get there. And then on my lunch break, I need to run to the grocery store, and I've only got an hour, so I got to get some food, and I've got to get in there and get everything that I need, and I got to get out. And there's that person, I ain't got time for them right now, we'll just have to catch up later. And then after work, it's like, oh, man, I'm so tired. And babe, this is a long day. You wouldn't believe what happened today. And I know, and the kids, they keep on pulling on me. They want to go jump on the trampoline. They want me to play some game with them. What we do, but I'm just tired. I just want to sit here. I just want to do this thing. I just want to check out and all of this. And we think that's real life. You know how I know we think that's real life? Because we do it over and over and over again, and we call it our life. And I would submit to you today that God is saying that's not real life. Real life is actually all of the opportunities that you passed up all day long because you could not be interrupted. That was the life I had for you today. Those were the people I wanted you to help today. Those were the things I wanted you to do today, but you had your own agenda. You had everything planned out. And I think we could reword it this way what C.S. Lewis said, that what we view as interruptions in our lives are actually opportunities for the real life that God desires for us to have with each other. And some of us aren't in a group because we can't be interrupted. Oh, I'm coming for you today. Oh, you might have to pick your feet up off the ground. Some of us, I love you and you know I love you. Some of us won't get in a group. Some of us won't serve. Some of us won't because we can't be interrupted. And we're like, we say, we'll be like, you want me to do what? Sometimes I think that's how God talks to me, like in that upper register. Like, what? You want me to do what? You want me to get up early and come set up for church? You want me to be there at 6:30 when it don't start till 9:30? You what? You want me to stay and tear? Like you want me to stay after until about 2 o'clock and help tear down? Don't you know what I got going on? Don't you know I got life happening? Don't you know, like, this is my day of rest. I'm supposed to be resting today. You want me to work some overtime this week because somebody's out sick? You want me to do what? Don't you know I'm busy? Like, you want to meet up and have lunch on Wednesday? Don't you know I only get 30 minutes for lunch? And I really don't want to, and this is not what we say, but this is what we mean a lot of times. I don't really want to waste that on you. And I think that God is trying to get us to recognize that the things that we view as interruptions a lot of times are actually opportunities for the life that He's really created for you to live. But you've got to be able to be interrupted. You've got to be able to be interrupted. Living life on mission isn't always going to be easy, but it's what God has called us to do, especially right here in our own community. Why in our own community? Because there are needs in every community, and this one included. There are needs all over that I feel like God wants you and I and even our church to meet, to make an impact in people's lives. And what would it look like? What would it look like? Each one of us made the decision today that we were going to impact our community. We were going to make sure that people were loved. What would it look like if we all decided to embrace interruptions in our daily lives instead of avoiding them? And maybe some of us, we need to ask ourselves this question today. In what ways could God be trying to use my current surroundings as a divinely purposed mission field? In what would happen if you woke up every day, if I woke up every day and said, in what ways is God going to use what I'm around, the people I'm around, the job that I'm doing, the place that I'm at, as a mission field? And I'm all for going overseas into different countries, and we're about to do that in a month and a half. We're taking a team of people to Jamaica, and we're going to be working with an orphanage and a church, and it's going to be a great time, and we're going to see lives change. It's going to be awesome. But sometimes I think we forget that Jesus also commanded us to reach people here. That basically, let me put it in 2019, this is what Jesus said: reach people in your area, reach people that are surrounding you, and reach people all over the world. And I don't know, I wasn't there whenever it was said, but the first one that's mentioned is in your area. Because there are people in your area that need Jesus. And I think sometimes we're neglecting because we can't be interrupted. It's an interruption. It's an interruption. I want to give you these last 2 points. The first one, you've got to decide what real life is to you. And you've got to come to the realization that life is actually the opportunities that God brings and what He has set out for you, not what you plan out for you all the time. Now, I'm not telling you not to have a plan. Don't walk out here and be like, Pastor Gabe just told me I don't need to plan anything. You need to fly by the seat of my pants and see what God does. That's not what I'm telling you to do. I'm a planner. Some of y'all are planners. You need to plan stuff out. But what I'm saying is you need to be open to being interrupted if God has something that He wants to change in your plan. Are you with me? So here's number 2. If you're able to be interrupted, a couple of things that I think we need to do. Here's point number 2 is be kind and loving. And we get this from Jesus. No better example than to get something from Jesus, right? That in every situation, Jesus was kind and loving. In every interruption, he was kind and loving. When he was tired, come on, somebody's about to relate to this. When he was tired and it was 12 o'clock at night and somebody called needing some help, Jesus was kind and loving. He knew what his mission was. Be kind and loving. I love this quote that I found this last week. It says, often the most effective ministry a Christian will have is loving and serving their own communities right where they are. Oftentimes the most effective thing you'll do is to love people and be kind to people and serve people right where you are. Right where you are. When was the last time that you were genuinely kind and loving towards someone that you viewed as an interruption? And I just jotted some things down here, just some reasons I think that we can all relate to. What are some reasons why we don't show genuine kindness and love to people that we encounter each day? Number one, we're tired. We're tired. It's a late night, and now you're needing something from me in the morning, and I'm just tired. I think that's one of the reasons we're just too tired sometimes to show. That's one of the reasons, or if you want to call it a reason, we might call it an excuse. We might say these are excuses that we use as to why we can't be loving and kind to people that we encounter every day. We're tired. Here's number two, we're distracted. We're distracted. You ever been in a conversation with somebody and you're looking right at them, you hear anything they say? I'm looking right at you. You just told me everything, and I didn't hear a thing you said, because what are we doing? We're thinking about everything that we got to do. Oh, this is about to happen, and I got that going on tomorrow at work, and I need to figure that out before I go to bed tonight, and all of these different things. And I didn't hear anything that you just told me. Nothing. Because I was distracted. Some of us are distracted by things. We're distracted by material things. We're distracted by money. We're distracted by work. We're distracted by relationships. We're just distracted. And we're not loving and kind. We're not living out the way that Jesus lived when he was on the earth in every person that he encountered, because we're distracted. We're just distracted. We're tired. We don't have time. Anybody ever said that? I don't have time. Oh, I would help you, but I just don't have time. Oh, I'd love to be there, but I just don't have time. I just love the idea of small groups, and I would just love to be in an I group, but I just can't make time. I just don't have time. I just with work and with kids, and we're playing soccer and basketball and hockey and volleyball and basketball and softball and baseball, and we just don't have time. We don't have time. We're distracted. We don't have time. Sometimes we don't think it's important. Here's something that, I love you. I'm about to get all over you for just a moment, but sometimes, and I'm preaching to myself right now when I'm saying this to you, so don't walk out here and be like, "Whew, that was rough." No, I'm listening to everything. I'm gonna go back and read these notes again this next week, because I need everything I'm talking about today. But so many times, if it doesn't affect me, we don't say it this way out loud, but if it doesn't affect me, I really don't care. I just don't care. You're going through something, and I'm sorry you're going through that, but that doesn't affect me. I already had plans. We were already going here. We were already doing that. I already set this up. And we can't be interrupted, because we don't feel like it's important. How many of you know that if you had something going on, you would want somebody else to think it's important? So many times we think, it's just subconsciously, we don't do anything. We don't help people. We don't show love. We don't show kindness to people, because we just don't think it's that important. And for some of us, we don't even notice the opportunities. We're so distracted by everything going on around us that we don't even know. Some of us avoid interruptions. Some of us don't even know somebody tried to interrupt us, because we don't even notice it. because of everything going on in our lives and everything that we've got, listed out that we need to do. We just don't even notice it. And in the verses that we read earlier, we see that Jesus was always kind and always loving toward every person that he encountered. And I think that being kind and loving might look like being an interruptible person, taking time to listen, showing genuine concern. Maybe it's helping somebody carry a burden that they've got going on in their life. And you're going to be there for them, even when it's inconvenient. It's treating the interruption as an opportunity. And I want to bring the worship team back up. We're going to give you point 3. You got to make the decision that real life is not what I plan out. Real life is what God has planned out for me. The encounters and the opportunities that he has planned out for me. And then in those moments, you got to remember to be kind and loving. Sometimes we have to, come on, how many of y'all know sometimes we have to remind ourselves to be kind and loving? Under your breath, you might encounter somebody, and under your breath, you got to be like, be kind and loving. Okay, let me listen to what you have to say. And then here's number 3. I think we've got to be intentional. We've got to be intentional. We can't escape the fact that there will be times when people interrupt our lives, but I would submit to you that living our lives on mission means that we are intentional to look for these opportunities. Not just waiting on an opportunity. That when you go, you're looking to help somebody. You are looking to serve somebody. You're not waiting on somebody to come ask you. You're looking for it. You're not waiting on somebody to come find you. You're finding them. You're not waiting until somebody tells you what's going on. When you notice that there's something wrong or there's something off, you ask them, are you doing okay? That's what being intentional looks like. Being intentional. Because those opportunities that Jesus was bringing your way, that is the life that he desires for you. Will you stand to your feet today? Here in just a moment, we're going to pray. We're going to sing one final song, worship together, and then we're going to go our separate ways. But I want you to do this. Will you close your eyes all over this room? And I want you to just imagine. I think sometimes this helps me, maybe it'll help you, to just imagine for just a moment, what does it look like in your life for you to view interruptions as opportunities? What does that look like for you? Don't be worried about the person. Don't think about what it looks like for your husband or for your wife or for your kids or for your mom. What does it look like for you? To transfer this thought in your mind that this is not an interruption. This might be an opportunity that God has for you. What does it look like for you to show kindness and love to people around you? What does it look like for you to be intentional? To look for opportunities. To look for opportunities to be the hands and feet of Jesus. I believe that even right now, in this moment, that God is doing something. I'm believing that God is doing something in your heart. God is doing something in your thinking. That sometimes the things that we view as an interruption are actually an opportunity that God wants to present for you to change somebody's life, for you to help somebody that might need help, for you to listen to what somebody else is going through. So God, right now, I'll go ahead and bring our prayer team down. God, right now, in Jesus' name, we thank you for your word, and we thank you for speaking to us. We thank you for your example. That even when you were tired, even when you could have been distracted, even when it was exhausting, even when it might not have been something that you saw coming, God, that you were kind, and you were loving, and you were intentional because you knew what your purpose and mission was. And so, God, we ask that you would give us that perspective today. And as we sing this last song, I pray that you would draw every person today who needs prayer for anything in their life. God, that if they need prayer for something, they would come and they would let us pray. And Lord, that we would worship you, that we would lift our hands, we would lift our voices. In Jesus' name.